Welcome on in, ballers. That's right. It's time to look at Vincent. I know we haven't been doing a whole lot of CC content as of late. Obviously, we haven't been doing much of anything since I've been sick. But I went ahead and I went live just yesterday. And I went ahead and I made a couple tweaks to my Vincent deck. And I played a little bit of it on stream over on Twitch. And I had a game against an Enigma that I really, really, really enjoyed. And I wanted to go ahead and kind of go over the list real quick and then get into the game. We're going to be very quick about the list here. Taking a quick peek here, you can pause to find all of the different changes that exist here. These are in our maybe category for the most part, but right now, effectively what I've done to change is that initially my old list had Read the Runes and Runeblood Incantation in there. I removed both of those cards in favor for Envelop in Darkness. I do feel like Envelop in Darkness is as much as I don't love it because it costs 1, blocks for 2, it gets you a rune chant and then +3 on your next rune gate card. I feel like the value of one resource here, especially in some cases when you're playing things like Tunic on a more aggressive build, when you're trying to be the aggressor, playing Envelop in Darkness is really, really good because you can utilize that Tunic resource, play an Envelop in Darkness for free, utilize it for Vincent's ability because it is a Shadow Runeblade action. You get a Rune Chant token, which means that if you were -1 in order for you to get a Rune Gate out, now you're set to go. And then you can also get +3 damage onto your Rune Gate card as well. And coming in for something like 12 as opposed to something like 6 and 3 and 9, then you're in a pretty good spot. So Envelop in Darkness, pretty good. It blocks for 2, but so did Read the Runes and Runeblood Incantation. Runeblood Incantation also cost 1. Read the Runes cost 0. I would say maybe there's a world in which I swap out a Tear Through the Portal for Read the Runes if I need the additional rune chant generation. But you'll see throughout our game here that we do pretty well for what it's worth. But pretty standard stuff here, right? Your Deathly Whales. I'm running 1 blue Deathly Whale. All of our red and yellow Malefic incantations. All of our widespreads. Destruction, Annihilation, and Ruin. 3 Succumb in main. 3 Machinations in main. 2 Phantom Banshee. 3 Eloquent. 3 Deadwood. 3 Funeral Moon. And then your pretty basic swap here. We are not running that Face Purgatory. We are not doing that. We are instead running Crown of Providence. I like Crown of Providence a lot. You're going to see why, but I do see a world in which Face Purgatory is a better card. This all just kind of depends. I think if we see more Go Tall heroes happen in Flesh and Blood in this current meta, Face Purgatory probably makes a better cut. But if we do not, then we're probably looking at Crown of Providence being our big one here. So let's go ahead and get right into the game and go over it and see how we do. All right, so our game here, we're getting into Talishar, getting everything all set up, and we go up into a Enigma. So I'm not really too familiar with the Enigma matchup in most cases, outside of the fact that she might have CYB, she might not. I've elected to not really care about our CYB sideboard here, and instead I said, hey, I need to be the aggressor. Enigma likes to be very defensive, so me being the aggressor is important here. So I side in our Revels, our Shadow Puppetries, our Tear Through the Portals, and our Envelop in Darkness, and then 1 Oblivion. And we go into it, I think there's 62, I want to say 63 cards. 63 cards in the main deck. We're playing Tunic for the aggressive match, and then we're also still on Crown of Providence, Vexing Quill Hand. The best part into this matchup is that we have poppers. So Phantasmaclasm, not a big deal here in this regard. But for the most part, what we're doing here is I'm going to speed up this portion here. And we're going to see just kind of quickly make sure this game goes by very fast. All right, so we're going to have the game go here at about 1.5 times speed. This is just because it is quite a long game for all things considered. Now, my first turn, I get both of my Phantom Banshees in my hand, a Tear Through the Portal, and a Deathly Whale. Kind of like an awful first turn. Happy I got to go first in this scenario in case I had Malefic Incantations, but nothing in my hand for that. I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to go about playing this. I think I actually just pass. Yeah. So we just pass our turn. I'm going to add a Phantom Banshee into my Banish Zone, and we're going to see what we get. Another all red hand, kind of a feels bad. Even if I had to hard cast one of these cards, I would. But in this situation, we're just kind of hoping for the best. Our opponent plays a Warmonger's Diplomacy, not a card we love to see, but it also doesn't really matter because we can just choose War, and anything that we get in our Banish Zone, you know, if we deal damage, we can play Cullet instant speed. We've got a whole bunch of value in this stuff here. And so I really do think that it is a better, Warmongers doesn't do too much into Vincent, I don't think. But we want to put Cull in there. And in this situation, I look into possibly hard casting my Phantom Banshee because I don't want it to be in that arsenal for a long time. And I'd rather send damage while I'm on War. My opponent also chose War, if I recall. So they're also going to have to attack me, which, you expect there to be. But they don't AB any of that. They come in with 7. We do still have a Cull in Banish Zone. So theoretically, we could play Cull at instant speed because it is an instant. You can play it at instant speed. So theoretically, because I'm under War, I don't think I can play it here, which is fine. My opponent didn't try blocking anything, so I'm not able to really make any choices here. Effectively, I just get to go, okay, cool, I'll deal damage and pass. We've already leaked a little bit through here. Being able to take a Weakest Link and a CNC from their hand is pretty good. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried too much about it. I'm just happy to get that Phantom Banshee out of my arsenal, so that way I have something open if need be. And now we have a pretty nice little setup for Tear Through the Portal and a Deathly Delight, just in case we ever pop into that in the future. So here's an Oblivion, a Widespread Annihilation, Shadow Puppetry, and Funeral Moon. And with our opponent having a full grip, I expect a lot coming in here, but we just get the Restless Coalescence played out. Obviously, that's an instant, so they can play it. And then they go ahead and attack with it for 2. Now, I can play things at instant speed. I don't want to Cull here, so our opponent has no cards in hand, so there's no reason for me to Cull. But if I take damage, I could also go ahead and play a Funeral Moon, and that might allow me to do something a little bit more devious on my turn. So we end up taking the 2 damage here, and then Funeral Moon, we could theoretically play it. I don't think we end up doing that, though. We're just going to throw it into our Banish Zone, and I could very well just hardcast Widespread Annihilation. So trying to rip a card out of my opponent's hand is pretty good. Again, I don't love hardcasting anything, but it's 1 arcane damage with no Floating Tunic resource and then 6 physical. Obviously, if we have an opportunity to pop our opponent's Restless Coalescence, we're in a pretty okay spot. But our opponent goes ahead and gives it go again, and then plays Stir the Pot, and then plays Passover. 3 Transcend cards in the same turn, which is not, I mean, it's nice to see them all resolved, but you're probably not wanting that, right? So they give my attack go again through Path Well Traveled. And then, of course, they get to do all the other shenanigans that they utilize, such as Passover. They actually banished a Phantom Banshee from my graveyard to my Banish Zone. So I do have another target of a card. They go ahead and block 6, which makes sense. They A-beat out stuff, so they're not going to have to banish a card from hand. But in this situation, I have an opportunity to Cull and Funeral Moon, and then possibly even swing Flail. So what I do, and in this situation, what I should be doing, because I have 1 life, I should be playing Cull, and then theoretically with their board having 2 things there, I could Cull, get rid of the card in their hand, and then also swing for 1/1 with my Flail. I do choose to pay a life, and then I also play Funeral Moon. So therefore, we get to banish. There we go. We knock that out there, and then I end my turn, but I certainly shouldn't have. I should have attacked with Flail. I don't know why I didn't, but I at least got an energy out of their hand. They swing with Spectral Shield here because I could have rocked their whole turn if I had attacked with a flail. So good to know on me that I should have definitely been doing that. But that's okay. We went ahead and we just take a little bit of damage here. Again, we have a Deathly Whale and a Phantom Banshee in our Banish Zone. We're just going to take a little bit here, block out a little bit, and try to send some more damage. We have a Machinations of Dominion, so no unpreventable rune chant here, but we do at least get to send a Phantom Wraith, which is pretty good. Not too upset with a Phantom Wraith sending. But I think overall what we want to try and do is, again, just do 1 to 2 attacks on our turn, just simply because they have a pretty decent sized board right now. And so doing what we can here, we do pop a Vexing Quill Hand. Now we can play the Red Deathly Whale, which is pretty good. It allows us to go ahead and get, if we hit even just once, even if one of these points of damage hits, we get to go ahead and create another rune chant on the back end. But I believe, with our opponent having a whole bunch of blues and also instant speed stuff, they play another Restless Coalescence. They move the counter from the Spectral Shield to a Restless Coalescence, and then proceed to make another Spectral Shield. So they have 2 Spectral Shields, 2 Restless Coalescence, 3 cards in hand, and a Dream. Here, they obviously still have Arcane Barrier, so they can utilize Arcane Barrier for the remaining 3 rune chants and have 1 of the 4 rune chants be eaten up by a Spectral Shield. And then very casually, they get to come in and block out 6 casual, easy 6 damage with Overpower. So here, with the additional Go Again, I believe I flail after, which is pretty good. I mean, it allows me to swing away and get rid of another Restless Coalescence. I'll gladly take a life if it means that I get to go ahead and rip another card, either from my opponent's hand or to kill a Restless Coalescence. So we get to go ahead and hit that. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. We've got 1 card here. We get the rune chant because we hurt ourselves in attacking after that chain link closed, which is really good. We got to end. Our opponent does nothing. They arsenal that card. Now we have a pretty interesting turn here. We got a Banshee, a Wraith, or a Wraith, and a Cull. So we can kind of do 2 things, I'd imagine, but we're kind of low on rune chants. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going about making rune chants in this scenario, because I want to at least swing 2 big attacks. So we're going to swing Machinations and probably go ahead and send in the Phantom Wraith after pumping it, right? So I choose to not utilize Vincett's ability here simply because they don't have anything on the board right now. And if I utilize the ability beforehand, they take a rune chant and then play things. It works out better for them. So no need to spend the life when you don't need to. We go ahead and we pump up our Phantom Wraith. Phantom Wraith's then going to come in for 9 with Go Again and Overpower. So 2 chants, 9 Overpower. Pretty good turn. And then if they end up trying to play anything afterwards, I can just send Flail. Right? Flail for 1 point of damage is pretty good. It does cost me a life to attack with Flail, but honestly, it's so, like, not having to pitch a resource to attack with a weapon is pretty crazy. Now, obviously, if I swung for 3 damage with like a Reaping Blade or something, that might not be too bad. But I think coming in for even 1 point of damage and then threatening more is good. So they have the Rage Spectre to block 3, and then a Sink Below and a Shelter to block out the rest of it. So I don't entirely know that I would have spent both D-Reacts on this. I guess they were just assuming they didn't take any arcane damage, so they shouldn't have been worried about Succumb to Temptation. But that's okay. I just get to go ahead and swing Flail. I get a free rune chant. And then I just pass my turn. I get to keep Cull in my Banish Zone. Again, you're seeing that we're keeping our Cull specifically for a situation that's going to work out best for us, because we do not want to mess this up. So we do it here in a situation. We have a Sonata Galaxia and a Deadwood Dirge. Works out pretty good for us simply because we get to now go get a Malefic Incantation, something we have not seen for the past 3 turns. We have not seen a single Malefic Incantation. And so what I can do here is I can go ahead and Deadwood Dirge. I also have a floating resource from Tunic to be able to play that Envelop in Darkness like I had mentioned earlier. So we're going to go ahead, go up to 4 Rune Chants here. Now, for the sake of talking here, how much you are paying into Sonata Galaxia is 4, right? You are paying 4 resources into Sonata Galaxia. What I do here is I pay 2, and I think that's how much I need, right? Because X equals 2. So I end up losing my resource because if it's 2 or if X equals 2 or more, you get go again. I paid 2 and it didn't give me go again. So I went, something is wrong here. I don't know why that is. I went ahead, I did it again, and I thought it was a bug. I thought it was a Talishar bug, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I should definitely be able to get go again. And it's because I need to be choosing number 4 when I'm choosing how much to pay into it, because it's X, you pay 4 resources, and it's 2 in each. So I pay 4 because I have 4 Rune Chants. I get the Malefic, and now I have my action point back. This is just Talishar stuff. If you ever explain this to your opponent will probably know what you're doing, but in this situation, we didn't have anything there. So I play Envelop in Darkness. I don't actually know. I believe I don't pay. Yeah, just because they don't have anything up right now, so there's no reason to pay. I play Envelop in Darkness. I go ahead and I swing I can swing Phantom Banshee for 10, or I can swing Widespread Ruin for 9. So I end up swinging Phantom Banshee for 10. It's just harder to get this out of the banish zone, and so I'd much rather get rid of it and allow myself some stuff here. You'll notice I have down here, it's kind of hard to see just because I'm blocking my camera. This is all a streamed game also, by the way, so you know, I'm not doing it right now, but I'm blocking my face from where I was, so that way you're not confused. But we swing a Phantom Banshee for 10 in a bunch of chants. Our opponent's either going to full block here with everything, or they're going to block with 2 cards, and then I'm going to call that last card out of their hand. That's kind of the game plan here. But lo and behold, they get the second Shelter from the Storm. I could call here, and I do, just because in case they happen to have a third D-React, I want them to like get rid of it. It was a Spectral Manifestations that they got rid of. So that's kind of a good thing that we got to not have to deal with. But they only blocked 4. They took 6. They played this. Now, this is a pretty crazy turn for them because Essence of Ancestry Body, effectively what it says is that when this leaves, the next time you're dealt damage by a red source, it blocks out all the damage. Now, that is really, really good for them because I draw into a hand where I think I might be able to throw 2 things in, and I just cannot seem to do it. I cannot seem to do it. I want to be able to send the play Shadow Puppetry, send the Widespread Annihilation from my arsenal at my opponent, and then send a Deathly Wail with the Revel in Runeblood, but I just can't do it because, unfortunately, my opponent is going to be able to prevent the damage that's dealt either by Widespread Ruin or by a Deathly Delight because of its effect. So a really, really good tech into Vincent. I kind of just play around it, though. Luckily, they have an arsenal. My whole thing here is I want to play my Deathly Wail. I want to play Revel in Runeblood after I attack with this Widespread Destruction, and then play Revel in Runeblood, and then play Deathly Wail for 4 and 6. Unfortunately, because of Ancestry's ability, I can deal damage off this Widespread Destruction, but I cannot deal damage off of the Deathly Wail. So I look to see, there's the 3rd Shelter, so they're already at their 3rd Shelter. They're getting D-React after D-React into me here. So no further damage there, But I did get to deal 1 point of damage to them, so they are going to lose their arsenal at least. But in this case, I actually just pass. And that's simply because I didn't want to waste the resources. I'd rather take 1 point of blood debt if it means that I get to set up for the next turn, and we're all set to go. My opponent plays a Waning Vengeance, comes in and attacks me for 3. I'm debating on if I just want to block. We got another Malefic Incantation, which is good. And it sets us up for a pretty good turn, considering we do have Runeblood Incantation, or not Runeblood, Revel in Runeblood in our arsenal. So we at least get a 2-gate turn out of this. So we just simply block 3, and we're going to keep it light into our Banish Zone. Effectively, what we do here, because we have the 2 chance, is we can play Malefic Incantation, and then go ahead and play the Widespread Ruin or Phantom Wraith, depending on whatever it might be, right? Whatever we want to do with it here. But we send the Widespread Ruin because we want to start ripping cards from their hand. We get 2 on the back end. I theoretically... No, never mind. I don't know. I'm thinking of other lines as I'm watching this, and I know that's not right. What we do here now is we're going to Creepers. The downfall here is that our opponent has AB'd our 2 Rune Chants. I'm going to activate Creepers and then play Revel in Runeblood to get my action point back. So I play Revel in Runeblood. I get my action point back. My opponent blocks with a Sink Below and Arsenal, so that's fine. They get to survive a little bit longer, but I get to send a bunch more Rune Chants now, because now I'll have, 6 Rune Chants, if I recall? 6 Rune Chants, and then 6 physical coming in. Yeah. 6 Rune Chants, 6 physical, 2 cards in hand, and a Spectral Shield is what they have. And if I deal any arcane damage to them, I get to keep my Creepers. The downfall here, though, is that my opponent decides that they want to make sure that I don't get to keep my Creepers. So they AB every single one of these. They have all blues in their hand, as MST heroes are wont to do. And they go ahead and they AB all of the Rune Chants. I go ahead and I get to just come in for a casual 6 damage, 5 technically with the Spectral Shield up, but their turn is going to be pass. So I get a Rune Chant off the back. I got a Levels of Enlightenment off the top of their deck, which means that's 2 Levels of Enlightenment from their deck that I've banished now. And unfortunately, we did lose our Creepers. So now here we're stuck in a situation where we need more Rune Chants. We do not have any Rune Chants to play any of these cards from our hand. We have a Phantom Wraith in Banish Zone. So we kind of just are trying to figure out what I want to keep in there. I can hardcast a Deathly Wail, so that's probably what I'm going to do best, and then keep that Tear Through the Portal in my arsenal. We want to make sure we're getting these Malefic Incantation triggers and constantly threatening damage. In this case here, our opponent decides to undo. I think they want to... they're going to play their Tunic resource to block out the 1 Rune Chant there. And then 6 damage is going to come in. Now, they're either going to block the 6 damage and be good to go, or they're going to allow me to take a little bit off the top here. If they block 2, that's fine. A 2-card hand from Enigma, so long as it's not a Chi and a Mirage, a Miragai, we're in a fine spot. But Deathly Wail just for 6. We didn't deal any damage. It's 20-19 right now, so the life totals are pretty close. This is normally, at least from what I can tell, this is probably normally Enigma favored, just with how well they block. But they block 3 here with that. They've used all of their D-reacts that I can tell now, because this is the 3rd Sink Below that is being used. So no damage gets sent off. We don't get an additional Rune Chance. I just arsenal a card, and then they get to send a Waxing Spectre. So pretty good way to keep up. You block. They blocked 7, technically 8. No, they blocked 7. And then they got to send 4 with Go again. We don't really care, I don't think. In our own crazy world, I think it's kind of fine that we take 4 here and go down to 13, especially since we have things like Cull. We have a Succumb to Temptation, which is really, really, it's either really easy or really hard for them to play around. So we go ahead, we keep our whole hand, we take 4 damage, and we see what we can do here. We're going to banish our Deathly Delight. We're going to play another Malefic Incantation, so that way we can keep the Rune Chance going. And then we're going to play our Tear Through the Portal to give go again to something. I am going to pay 1 life to make sure that we guarantee that this Waxing Spectre gets blown up and does not get to ward 3, and instead just essentially does nothing. We play our Deathly Delight out. I got dealt damage. My opponent is going to be dealt damage. And because of that, we get to gain 2 life, right? So we'll effectively be going from 12 to 14, right, after the chain closes. And then we get to deal some damage here. So our opponent ABs, they pitch away that last levels of enlightenment for some arcane damage. We have Deathly Delight coming in here for 5. We got 2 Rune Chants off the back of those Malefic Incantations, which means that we can play a Phantom Wraith from our Banished Zone as well, which is pretty good. Our opponent blocks with Traverse the Universe, though, which makes me think that we're dealing with a Miragai situation. And I don't love a Miragai situation. I do not. I do not love a Miragai situation. I'm not honestly sure whether or not Miragai is even being run in this version of the deck, but I do know that it is something that is definitely a great 2-card hand for them. So I just go ahead and I send our Phantom Wraith in, and you'll see that I kept the Succumb to Temptation. Now I'm going to play it because our opponent obviously wants to keep a Chi and 1 card in hand, and I'm going to play the Succumb to Temptation. They don't have, as far as I know, any more defense reactions because they have used their Sink Belows and they've used their Shelter from the Storm. So they shouldn't have any defense reactions. And now what they're going to do instead is they're going to pitch their inner Chi so that way I don't get to take it and banish it from their hand. And now what they're doing is they're making the Meridian Pathway gain ward 3. So it's going to cover up the effect, which means I'm not going to be able to get any damage dealt, but I do have the cull. And so I end up culling that card out of my opponent's hand anyway, just really making sure that I make that happen. So they've already spent the ward. We got their boots. We got a card out of their hand. They made a Spectral Shield, and I still get to swing my flail and kill that Spectral Shield in order to just like fully remove it from the game here. Our opponent blocks with Tunic, and we get a Tunic on top of it. So we got a Meridian Pathway and Tunic and Traverse the Universe in the same turn, and they're still left with 0 cards in hand, which was insane for me. But here, right, we're still trying to keep a good tempo. We have a Revel in Runeblood, which feels really good. I believe we have 1 card left in our Banished Zone, and I believe it is a Deathly Whale, or it's a Phantom Banshee or Phantom Wraith. We go ahead, we take some damage. It is a Phantom Wraith. So what we can do here is, good news, we can play that Tear Through the Portal. We can choose to pay a life to get rid of the Spectral Shield. I'm debating, I don't think I'm going to do that because they're either going to full pitch everything or they're going to just, I mean, this Spectral Shield is going to die to something, right? Excuse me. And so what we do here is we just send a Phantom Wraith with Go Again and 2 Rune Chants. We have the Revel in Runeblood, so we can send a Deathly Whale. Our opponent does not have anything like a Essence of Ancestry Body out on the board. So because of that, we can pretty much full send this hand here. We have dealt more damage to ourselves this game than our opponent has, I think. And that is just like the downfall of Blood Debt. But we do have a nice, really, really nice setup with this being the case. Our opponent takes block 6. We get to Revel in Runeblood. This is like free 99 here. We send in the Revel. This comes in for 5 Rune Chance and 5 physical. So we sent, what, 8 plus 10? So we sent 18 damage on this turn. And our opponent has like next to no way to prevent everything here. So they're going to take some damage. We're going to get that Spectral Shield. And we're also going to go ahead and get that card from their hand, their last Restless Coalescence, and get a Rune Chant. Now, if I had dealt damage to myself when I played Tear Through the Portal, I'd have gotten 2 Rune Chants. But that's fine. They still pass back to us anyway. We now have no cards in our Banished Zone for Blood Debt, which is great because we effectively just get to keep going now. We got 2 Malefic Incantations, 1 card in Banish Zone. It's pretty much a weird setup here, because effectively what I do is I'm going to play both these Malefic Incantations to get us set up. But I only have 1 Rune Chant. The thing that's in my Banish Zone costs 2. So what I do is I play the Tunic trigger and I destroy my Grimoire. The reason I do that is because I want to play Funeral Moon and give it go again. So I can get 2 Rune Chants. I do pay the life. I swing Deathly Delight. And now I'm going to be getting 2 health back. One of these Rune Chants is unpreventable, so if my opponent does want to try to play anything to prevent that stuff, they're not going to be able to. They end up playing a Grains that tip the scale, or at least they're going to try to. They're going to play Rising Sun, then Grains. Okay, they're going to try to sequence this in a way that works out. So yeah, so they give my attack +1 with Grains, and then they also Rising Sun, Setting Moon. They get a Spectral Shield out of it. The thing is, though, is that they made their Spectral Shield before the Unpreventable Rune Chant. And so I blew up their Spectral Shield anyway. I then get to come in for 6 on 3. I deal some damage, gain 2 life. My opponent comes in with Phantasmaclasm. Really, really good. They get rid of all the poppers in my hand, which is feels bad. But my hand is also really bad. I have no attacks. So what I do here is you'll see the power of Crown of Providence. I'm just going to take 7 damage here. And I'm going to hope that I get something that I can send into my opponent on this turn. The odds are I can, right? But we're going to get rid of that Deadwood Dirge. We end up getting a yellow Deathly Whale, which is perfect because we do have a Deadwood Dirge already. And this is where the hands get kind of crazy, right? This is like last little battles. I have a Grimoire in my Banish Zone, which means that that's a Blood Debt card I can't get rid of, which means I'm paying myself for at least 1 every single turn. I play my Shadow Puppetry. I go ahead and I swing my Deathly Whale in the hopes that we get to make something happen here. So we play Shadow Puppetry. We pay the life, more importantly. So now we're at 2. We swing in with all of this arcane damage. Our opponent chooses to AB when it gets down to 3 Rune Chants. There's that Manifestations of Miragai, which I was scared of. And we get to come in for 5. Or 6, sorry. 6 on hit. I get to look at the top card of my deck and banish it if I want to. If it is anything that is remotely sendable, I can Deadwood Dirge the Rune Chant I have in the back and then play it, right? And that's going to close out the game for me. They don't block here, and I'm aware that they don't have any more defense reactions. So I play Succumb, but they do have a Fate Foreseen. So now I'm kind of scared, because if they have a second Fate Foreseen, they just block this whole thing out. They don't, though. They now see that I get to see their hand and discard a card. I see Essence of Ancestry and a Rage Spectre. I'm going to get rid of the body, because you can't play Rage Spectre if you don't have any resources. So I get rid of Essence of Ancestry body, and then we see that there's a Tear Through the Portal at the top. I don't want to banish this card because it just doesn't do anything, right? It's not the card I want to send. But I do banish it because if I run into it, I just die. I need attacks. I need to attack with things. So I arsenal that. I'm down to 1 life. This is my last turn. I know that there's a Rage Spectre in Arsenal, but I forget halfway through. And I forget, I think it's a D-React, and I'm like, oh god, I don't know how to do this. So we have 5 Rune Chants because of a Deadwood Dirge. I'm then going to go ahead and Deadwood Dirge again, because look what we ran into, in Oblivion. So we actually are going to have enough resources to be able to play Oblivion and then attack with it because of Shadow Puppetry. So this is like the final turn. I die here if I do not get the kill. So I play Shadow Puppetry. I can't use Vincett's ability to give it unpreventable stuff. And then we go ahead and play this out. We send the Widespread Ruin. It's going to have 7 and then 7 Rune Chants in the back. When that first Rune Chant resolves, we play the Oblivion, get Nazareth out, and then we just go ahead. Our opponent's going to block out some stuff here. They block out 3 of the Rune Chants, and then we have 3 more Rune Chants coming in, plus 7 physical damage. Now, The card off the top, luckily Shadow Puppetry is a May ability because I don't have to banish it. But it would certainly be awful if I did, right? I mean, like I said, this is the turn I have to win or I die. I have 1 blood debt I can't get rid of. I'm at 1 life. So my opponent has to have it here. I had completely forgotten at this point that there was a Rage Spectre in the arsenal. So I'm sitting here hoping and praying. They block 6 on my 7. I say, okay, cool. I'm going to look at the top card. It's a Deathly Delight. I don't want that in there, so I'm just not going to do it. Even though technically with Widespread Ruins ability, it would go in there anyway. But I don't care. I don't bother banishing it because then the next thing I do is I send Nazareth for 6. My opponent has no cards in hand and no way to block. And I win this Enigma game. The craziest thing ever. I was so, I mean, just taking a look here at these totals, I threatened 130 damage. I dealt 43. There's no thing to tell me how much I got dealt by my own thing, but I gained 4 life over the course of the game. My average damage threatened per offensive card was 2.65. Average damage dealt per turn was 3. Threatened per turn was roughly about 10. So there was a lot happening here when it comes to this. But I do think that the overall game was really, really close. I mean, I got down to the wire for this game. And if I didn't get lucky, if that Oblivion didn't come at that right time, if I didn't stack those rune chants in a way that made sense for me at the time, Oblivion would have just been a dead card and I would have died to blood debt all day. But it turned out that they got through a lot of their defense reactions super, super, super early. And so because they got through them super early, they didn't have anything to be able to keep up with the tempo. I do believe if they did have a D-React there, well, I guess technically they were at 3, we sent 6. So even with 1 D-React, there would have been 1 additional point of block value there. Wouldn't have been enough. Definitely a lot in that game, but I was not expecting to win it. I did win it. Yeah, it was just like super, super fun. I enjoyed playing it. I hope that you all enjoyed watching it. And if this is something that y'all want to see more of as I continue to learn a little bit more about the ins and outs of Vinsets or good matchups or bad matchups, what things I want to change in the deck, feel free to go ahead and let me know. I'll be more than happy to go ahead and take a look and do some more games because honestly, she's a super fun hero to play. Very, very rewarding when you can get games like that happening. And honestly, even in most cases, like the games I play into are very close. I mean, I have to get like blown out. I think if there's one thing that ends up screwing me the most, it's Scour. But if I go against a wizard, I mean, I effectively just have to play in a weird way anyway. So not the end of the world for me there in that situation. But I do at least know that with Vinset, you still run enough blues and enough things to deal with wizards and just come in with a ton of damage. I do feel like a lot of the damage that was dealt to me on this game was my own self, right? I mean, there were times in which I had blood debt for 3 blood debt. I had 2 blood debt for most of the game. So that means that every single one of those turns, I'm taking 2 damage. I'm taking 3 damage. I'm taking 2 damage. I'm taking 1 damage. I'm taking 2 damage. And so I probably dealt out of my own health pool. I would say maybe even like 15, maybe 20 damage to myself over the course of that game, which is not good in the long run, but it does allow for very wide turns. I mean, the fact that I lost my creepers all in the same turn, I wasn't, my opponent just AB'd the entirety of that arcane damage, had all blues, and they were able to do it. We also have so many other turns in which like I just kind of got like stifled. I wasn't really able to do anything. The Essence of Ancestry body that stopped me from being able to revel in Rune Blood into a Deathly Wail. That was a huge, huge turn to miss. Luckily, I was able to get it off on my next turn, but that's kind of the whole thing about Vincent. Is like you got to take risks. These risks end up causing you harm, but it is very rewarding when you get those large turns off and you just get to go, okay, cool. I'm sending 18. Like, hope you're cool with that. Okay, I'm sending this. Like, being able to threaten 130 damage right here is pretty good. Especially into heroes, that look to gain life and all this other stuff. Like, it's very, very good to have that kind of value. And so the total game time also being 46 minutes, that is within a round timer. So this is a good example that even with the mistakes I made halfway through the game with that Sonata Galaxia, 46 minutes is still within the round timer. So good on us. But anywho, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And then let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about Vincent. Do you think she's a good contender into the 2025 meta right now, or do you feel like maybe she's not quite poised and there's better things to be played? Are you an Aurora main and you'd rather be playing Aurora than playing Vincent? Feel free to let me know. I'll be more than happy to go ahead and discuss with you in the comments down below. But otherwise, I hope you all continue to have fun in the flesh and blood, and I will see all of you beautiful Ashwings in our next video.